Got it. Now, what really shocked me about this movie was that it turned into not so much a story about the weaknesses of Elliot Spitzer and how he went down, but rather how his enemies used this opportunity to destroy him. And it actually becomes a sort of companion piece, in a way, to Inside Job. Have you seen Inside Job yet?
Yes.
Do you see why I would say that?
Yeah, I think that this...
And he's in that movie as well.
Right, he is. This film is more about power and political blood sport. This film kind of testifies to why. It gives the kind of the hot breath of power. You feel the heat in this film because you get very close to the powerful people who insist on their rights and privilege. And when somebody like Spitzer or other regulators challenge them, they fight back, and they fight back hard. And that's what you get in this film. I think that's unique. So,
and you got them. You
yeah,
got them
I
to
got
really
them all.
reveal themselves. I found that very interesting. They didn't seem to see any shame or any reason not to show you exactly what they were like.
They wanted to stamp on Spitzer's grave. That's what they wanted to do. And so, as soon as the film was announced, which was some time ago, I got a call from Hank Greenberg's office saying he wanted to talk. Now, it took a number of years to get him to talk because every time I arranged an interview, his lawyers would not let him talk. But finally, after the Tribeca screening, his lawyers asked me, perhaps because the statute of limitations ran out on certain crimes, but they actually asked me if he could talk, and I was delighted to talk to Greenberg. Ken Langone also had a very strong point of view. He wanted to stamp on Spitzer's grave. Same thing as Roger Stone, the notorious Republican trickster, Joe Bruno, all of them. With Spitzer, right after the scandal happened, they were only too happy to smile and smirk and reflect on his downfall, because I don't think it's stretching the truth to say they hated this man.
They really did.
Right.
And
you can feel that vitriol on screen.
Yeah, no, it's very clear. And they're very colorful. They're very entertaining.
Ken Langone is very entertaining.
Now, the guy that you ended up boxing with, talk about your the way you played him, it seems to me.
You mean Joe Bruno?
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe Bruno.
Tell us who
Joe
he
Bruno is the former Senate Majority Leader in New York State.
Right.
And he is a classic, very charismatic, very charming politician.
Corrupt as the day is long.
Yes, and he has been convicted for corruption. That may be upset. They're appealing it now, but he's been convicted for corruption. But Joe was quite a good amateur boxer, and he still works out on the bag, both the heavy bag and the light bag. So
you got him to
He
do
was
this.
only too happy to work out on the light bag and the heavy bag for us. And also, Elliot Spitzer was famous for a moment where he said, I'm a steamroller, invoking James Taylor's tune. I'm a steamroller baby, and I'm going to walk all over you. Well, we got Joe Bruno riding his own steamroller, his own tractor in his, magnificent farm.
And I could just see you laughing as you're saying.
I
and he's
was
like
laughing.
Going along with
he
it.
was only too happy. I mean, he said a steamroller's got nothing on this. Is when it says as he puts the gears on his huge tractor and rides around by the many horses that he is. He's got on this palatial farm. So yeah, it was pretty fun, and there was something about the environments in this film that kind of surprised me. I mean, we kind of make the city of New York an environment too, where you kind of, instead of using a lot of archive, we went out and shot New York in all manner and forms, because it's kind of like the salon of power, New York City. And, you can kind of feel it. That's where these people live.
But it's the backdrop to this entire economic situation
That's
that
right.
we're now in. And you're
That's
revealing...
Right. What we're revealing is the underbelly of it and the heat of it and the kind of behind the scenes of it. And you see some of the big crimes that, ultimately lead to the biggest crime of all, which is, of course, the economic meltdown. But you can see along the way, and we have actual, pretty good evidence of stuff that's closer to street crime, even though it's white-collar crime. And this is the kind of thing that Elliot Spitzer was going after.
Now, obviously, the big character here is Elliot Spitzer himself, and he sat down with you for some very intimate, and I say intimate because of the way you shot it. You shot it in a very carefully chosen way. Would you care to explain what you were doing there? It was beautiful, I thought.
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, we wanted an environment where he felt, where it was out of the hustle and bustle, it wasn't in his office, where he felt comfortable, and also where we could talk for long periods of time. As he said, there was a time when, you had to schedule him down to the minute, but
not anymore.
Not anymore.
Now that he's at CNN, he'll have another
right. He'll have another
life.
schedule issue, but when I was interviewing him, it wasn't so. We shot him in an apartment, and one of the things I did with Spitzer, because I knew he was at the heart of the story, and also with Angelina, is I have a little device on the front of my camera which has a little mirror, so that when you look right at the lens, but the mirror is at a 45-degree angle, and I sit off to the side, so that you look straight at the lens, but as I'm looking at the lens right now, what you do is you see my face. So Spitzer looks at the lens, but he sees my face.
Is that the Errol Morris technique?
It's a little bit different. It's a variation on the Errol Morris technique. Errol has a much more complicated device.
And he's farther away, I believe.
He's in another room.
He yells at people.
He's in another room, and but I operate in a more intimate and also lower budget mode. So I have a very simple box that was designed for me for about $500, and in certain instances I use it, and so I used it for Elliot and I used it for Angelina, and then I also have a camera on the side, and we lit him very much in light and shadow. So that, and that's kind of the world of Elliot Spitzer too, which is right, wrong, good, evil. But it's interestingly enough, in this story, there's a very much of a middle ground. I think for most of his life, Elliot Spitzer persuaded people that there was good, evil, and indeed we start with the film. In the opening, Elliot Spitzer in one of his campaign commercials says, "I just believe in right and wrong." Turns out there was a lot of gray in Elliot Spitzer's world.